Chapter 31 Bad Reality. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Warning. This chapter is rated R18 for violence. Apophis and Antanria left the hospital. Deciding that it would be a good opportunity for them to get to know each other better, Apophis led her on a walk for a good hour. Eventually, they came across a first group of players, 2 sentinels belonging to Gold is Good. The sentinels approached Apophis and Antanria, noticing that they looked like father and daughter. After all, Apophis was a Zetarch, human hybrid now. They at first thought the pair were NPCs, but when one consulted Apophis's information, he was surprised. The lower-level player recognized Apophis by name. After all, he'd become one of Horus's first celebrities, and eagerly asked him for techniques to progress faster. The exchange ended well, and the sentinels even parted with the words, "Enjoy our city, and have a nice day." Antanria was surprised. "Tell me, why did they show you such respect?" "They're the same kind of people as me," said Apophis. "The Tithing call us the Eternals, because every time we die, we come back to life." Of course, this was a massive simplification. Apophis and Antanria then visited the biggest shopping mall in Omaya. Most of the stores were closed because of the total collapse of the planet's economy, but he finally found a clothing store that was still open. Antanria wanted to visit it, since all she had was the suit she had worn in the stasis pod, so Apophis accompanied her. Unsurprisingly, the store was empty of customers, and the manager was almost surprised to see anyone at all. Since the prices were currently at rock bottom because of the current political crisis, Apophis took the opportunity to buy several dresses for Antanria. This seemed to make her rather happy. On the way out of the mall, they passed a still-functioning ice cream shop. Antanria, surprised, asked what it was. "It's a wonderful, sweet dessert," Apophis replied. The Zetarch princess looked at him with a deep expression and beautiful purple eyes. She was still a little girl, after all, with simple desires. At that moment, she looked like any human child, except for her great beauty in Zetarch. White hair. Apophis quickly realized the best thing to do was to buy 2 ice creams, which they ate in a nearby park. Despite himself, Apophis enjoyed this moment with the girl he had saved. They continued to walk around the city for several hours, observing the scenery, until they came upon a strange gathering. There were about 100 people, mostly NPCs, it seemed, around a raised stage. In the center stood 3 players and 1 Tithing, who had been forced to his knees. One player on the stage spoke up. "Well, you Tithing, it is truly too bad that you misunderstood your obligations. You'll have to pay up right now for the protection that our guild grants you." He turned to the crowd. "Dear resident of Omaya, this kneeling person is 4 days late in paying his protection tax. The glorious guild leaders have had no choice but to sentence him to death." Antanria stared intently at this display. After all, as a princess, her ordinary life was very far from that of the common people. The spokesman on the stage pulled a gun from his pocket and ordered Tithing to open his mouth. Apophis was surprised and raised his hand to hide the sight from Antanria. The player shoved his revolver into the Tithing's mouth and squeezed the trigger. It fired. A deafening silence of several seconds fell after the shot. It was only broken when the executioner shouted with joy, "Fuck yeah. I hit LVL 5. The players on the scene congratulated their friend for his level up. The Tithing NPCs, of course, could not believe what they'd just seen. It was a vision of horror, a display of horrific violence made infinitely worse by the explosion of joy from the executioner, whose clothing was still soiled by their countrymen's brains. Despite his callousness and ambition, which didn't allow him much room for sympathy for NPCs, Apophis was disgusted. The 21st century was a terrible century as humanity was forced to take refuge in huge domed metropolises. Life under these domes was accentuated by great inequality and violence. The mental health of the average human declined significantly, and mental health professionals made it known that both psychopathy and sociopathy had become far more common in the generations who grew up in this new environment. In fact, Apophis knew that some players only played Horus because of its incredibly realistic violence. After seeing this scene of horror, Apophis accompanied Antanria to a hotel and rented the very best suite available. It was time to rest. The day had been long for both of them, and Apophis had played for almost 40.8 hours without pause. He put Antanria to bed, then disconnected. Chapter 32 Bad Day. You are listening at novelfull.audio. By the time Alexander disconnected, it was midnight. He grabbed something to eat, took a shower, and went to bed. His alarm clock rang at 8 a.m., waking him up from sleep. Though he was eager to spend time with his family, first Alexander consulted his finances. He'd just sold 120,000 GC for 560,000 credits, that is, the equivalent of 30.5 years of the salary his father earned. Very satisfied with this result, Alexander went down to have breakfast with his family and to tell them the good news. His parents were astonished to see him. It had been almost a week since he'd appeared for any length of time. Alexander sat down. "Mom, Dad, I've managed to earn a comfortable salary, and now I'm going to get an apartment." His parents grew even more surprised. He'd only been playing for a week, but he already had the means to buy an apartment. His father asked how this was possible. Alexander told him part of his adventures and explained that the game's currency could be sold in exchange for real money at a current ratio of 1 GC for 4.6 credits. His father, who worked 12 hours a day for a mere 1,700 credits per month, was disgusted by this. "Tell me, son, since you haven't gone out for almost a week, I guess you want to have some fun now, right?" "I guess so," said Alexander, surprised. "Great," his father replied. "Since it's the weekend, can you lend me your VRI helmet?" Alexander understood what he was getting at. He now had the means to buy a game booth, anyway, so he gave his father the VRI helmet. Then he went to a specialized store in the heart of the Champs-Élysées Avenue in Sector 17, the richest sector in Paris. Alexander had never been here before, of course. Everything in this sector was much fancier than he was used to. The store was crowded. Everyone was trying to get VRI helmets, but there was still a tremendous shortage. Of course, Alexander didn't care about a mere helmet, and asked to speak to a sales manager. Alexander was dressed rather haphazardly and clearly didn't fit in. After all, he was very newly rich. So when the sales manager arrived, he said, "Listen, I have a lot of customers to deal with. If you want to get on the waiting list for VRI helmets, go to the terminal over there." Alexander replied, "I'm not here for a VRI headset. I'm here for your integrated game booth." The sales manager, in an arrogant tone, said, "Dear sir, the first cabin suitable for VR games is 500,000 credits." Alexander offered his arm, showing the amount on his hollow watch. "That sounds reasonable. I think I'll take it. First, though, go get me a can of Coke. I'm thirsty." The sales manager wanted to tell him to get it himself and then shove it up his ass, but since his salary depended on the sale, he decided that it was better to shut his mouth and do what he was told. After all, this was a sale of 500,000 credits. A bit later, after finishing his purchase, Alexander gave the sales manager a smirk. "Have it delivered to my house in 2 hours. If it's not, I'll file a refund claim. And thank you for the Coca-Cola. It was delicious." The sales manager longed to make Alexander eat the wall, but instead said, "Thank you for your purchase at GameStop. Please come again." While he was in the sector, Alexander visited a massage parlor. After all, he was practically rich now. Then he ordered 2 luxury escorts at 10,000 credits per hour to satisfy his libido. After all, he still had no girlfriend who would otherwise deserve his investment. After having burned almost 550,000 credits in one day, he found a real estate agency and put down a deposit so the agency would start researching an apartment in Sector 16, a very bourgeois district. Then he returned home to find the game cabin already deposited in his room. Alexander ate that evening with his mother, since his father was completely engrossed in playing Horus. After finishing his meal, it was time for Alexander to reconnect. Chapter 33 Bad Times. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Alexander settled into the game cabin and put the feeding pipes into his mouth. Though it was weird to think about, the cabin could feed the user's body food and vitamins during long play sessions. It was an important safety measure. Since he had changed his client platform from VRI Helmet to Game Cabin, Alexander re-entered his username and password, then connected. System. Welcome to the galaxy of Horus. The game needs to update. Please log out. Ah, shit, he grumbled. Then he paused. Where's the logout button? He was surrounded by total darkness, with no way to disconnect. This seems like it can't be good. Fortunately, Horus had an emergency restoration system that could be activated with a thought. System alert. Please confirm the restoration request by saying yes. Alexander did. System alert. Beginning restoration. Sorry. Your data is corrupted. Will you allow Horus to access your memories to restore your data? Alexander panicked. Would his memories of his original life be taken into account? Things could get very complicated very quickly. But his back was against a wall, so to speak. At worst, the game would restore him as an Esper of LVL 200 and rank A+. He clicked on Accept. System. Restoration in progress. 10% complete. System. Restoration in progress. 20% complete. System. Restoration in progress. 30% complete. System. Restoration in progress. 40% complete. System. Restoration in progress. 50% complete. System. Restoration in progress. 60% complete. System. Restoration in progress. 70% complete. System. Restoration in progress. 80% complete. System. Restoration in progress. 90% complete. System. Restoration in progress. 100% complete. System. Restoration complete. System. System_error_404. Character, Apophis, not found in the database. System. System_error_8904 detected. System. System_error_15008 detected. Several hundred messages of the same kind appeared, until System. Critical_error_1 A vital process has malfunctioned. The system will perform an emergency stop in 60 seconds. Shit. Alexander's heart pounded as he wondered what would happen to him. He remembered several accidents in the news about deaths caused by the original model of VRI helmet. What if it was now his turn? Alexander really started to panic. He frantically thought about the emergency procedure at least 10 times, but nothing happened. System. Critical_error_1 A vital process has malfunctioned. The system will perform an emergency stop in 10 seconds. Alexander remembered the time he was given a second chance at life, then thought about his family. Why had he not immediately saved his family with the money he'd already collected? The regret of not having done so was almost worse than the panic. At the very last second, Alexander wondered if an all-powerful God truly existed in this universe, and if he was going to meet him now. System. Critical_error_1 A vital process has malfunctioned. The system will now perform an emergency stop. Alexander prepared himself for the worst. Chapter 34 Bad Decision. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Apophis opened his eyes. A wave of absolutely incredible relief ran through his body, for he was still alive. Then he received the following notification. System. You have entered the raid at LVL. Flashback. The fall of Auralia, no _location difficulty. That was a strange and glitchy notification, but far better than being dead. Apophis gathered his wits and inspected his character. Name. Apophis, Guild. / Race. Zetark, Human Hybrid, Evolution LVL. 2, Next Evolution. LVL 20, Gender. Male Class. Esper LVL, 10 Rank. E+ Alignment. 1, Dark, Stats. STR, Strength. 200, plus 10%, equals 220 INT, Intelligence. 200, plus 10%, equals 220 AGI, Agility. 200, plus 10%, equals 220 DX, Dexterity. 200, plus 10%, equals 220 Energy. 1100, plus 50%, equals 1650 Luck. 1. Global Skill. Skills. Demon God Flame, Lord of Flames, Dark Cosmic Meditation, Susanoo Learning Tree, / Passive Skills. Archaeologist, Mark of a God, Warrior, Esper, Inventory. Equipment. Zetark Nobility Uniform, Epic, God Sench's Rings of Power, Legendary, Complete Zetark Battle Armor, Rare, Money. 401,023 Galactic Coins. Unbelievable. Despite his worries, nothing had changed. Then Apophis took a moment to inspect his environment. High above him, in the space surrounding the planet, was a huge space battle involving several thousand capital ships. What was this shit? He opened the political menu. Stellar Year. 5997 Galactic Sector. Center of the Galaxy, Difficulty. Divine, Stellar Faction. Zetark Empire Planet. Auralia, Biome. Arid. Now he thought he understood what had happened. The universe space of Horus had disappeared during the update, perhaps temporarily, perhaps not, and so Apophis was spawned into an instanced zone. Similar to being in a dungeon, he was observing a portion of a raid event that wasn't in the main game space of Horus. The keyword flashback in the server's message brought something to mind. In his old life, some raids were flashbacks to historical moments. So this raid was about the fall of Auralia, the ancient capital of the Zetark Empire. The strange thing was that Apophis had never heard of a raid retracing the fall of Auralia. Even stranger, the raid had no visible level, and the difficulty was glitched. He looked around and saw a vast palace a mile away. Apophis approached, but quickly realized something disturbing. Strewn across the ground on the way to the palace were thousands of dead soldiers. He inspected one. Imperial Guard, Elite, LVL. 200, rank. A+, this was incredible. The closer he got to the palace, the more corpses he met. Hundreds of thousands of high-level NPCs, all dead and scattered across the path. The atmosphere was heavy with silence. When he arrived in front of the palace, Apophis couldn't help but feel awed at its magnificence. It rose over 100 meters high and was built with magnificent Gothic architecture. Apophis entered through the two huge doors of the palace, but as soon as he entered the palace, Apophis received a notification. Quest notification. Survive. Secret quest, grade. Difficulty. Summary. You are in grave danger. Leave immediately, before he finds you. Objective. Survive for 999 years. Reward. Based on your final quest score. Failure penalty. Your soul is destroyed. Apophis, seeing the message, fell into despair. He couldn't even refuse the quest. What was he supposed to do? For the first time in a very long while, Apophis was petrified. Yet, he had to move on. Staying in one place was a guarantee of death. So Apophis continued to move forward, very carefully. What he saw next shocked him. In the next room, near a huge golden throne at the bottom of the stairs, lay an old man clutching a little girl. Apophis inspected the first corpse. Emperor Malekith VI, ruler of the Zetark Empire, boss, LVL. 200, rank. S+, but he recognized the second person. Princess Antanria, heir to the Zetark Empire, boss, LVL. 200, S+, it was Antanria, the girl he'd freed from the Zetark laboratory. But just when Apophis thought that was all, he noticed the man sitting on the golden throne itself. He was beautiful, with white hair, violet eyes, and two huge black wings on his back. He wielded a huge sword with an eye in the center, which was soaked with blood. The man gave off a powerful aura of dominance. Apophis understood what had happened. This thing had invaded the raid and massacred everyone. With apprehension, Apophis inspected the mysterious figure. Unknown God, Emperor, God, Slayer, Lord of the Universe, Player, LVL. Tier. No sooner had he finished inspecting than the man on the throne turned his head, and, in less than a second, had teleported before him. A moment later, the man had planted his sword in Apophis's stomach. System. You are dead. Chapter 35 Bad Ending. You are listening at novelfull.audio. System. Your soul has been destroyed. Apophis's heart pounded. His hands shook. What would happen now? This wasn't a simple character death which one could return from. This was permanent, like dying in Iron Man mode in a dungeon. System notification. Your passive skill, Mark of a God, has activated. A beam of light illuminated the whole room, and a familiar face appeared. It was the goddess Varda Elantari, who had appeared mysteriously before his party in Gravedigger's Tower. Varda Elantari waved her hand and cast a spell. Apophis's body lit up. System. Goddess Varda Elantari wishes to resurrect you. Do you accept? Apophis selected yes. And, just like that, he was alive once more. Varda Elantari turned to the man surrounded by swirling dark energy who had attacked Apophis. How dare you interfere in the affairs of mortals? The god, Emperor, smirked and replied, I have no more lessons to receive from you. All the mortals of the universe have submitted to me. Soon the gods will do the same. You will do the same. Varda Elantari turned to Apophis, her expression urgent. Flee as far as possible. I will hold him back. Cortana will soon intervene and restore your dimension. Run now. Apophis did not say a word, but turned and fled as quickly as possible. The goddess then drew a magnificent, 2-meter-long sword and deployed her beautiful white wings. The god, Emperor, had been surrounded by a cloak of dark energy, but he now absorbed it all. Thousands of dark beams entered his body, magnifying his terrifying aura so that it became unbearable. The walls shattered around him, and with one stroke of his sword, he sent a beam of pure black energy towards Varda Elantari. The goddess parried the blow with difficulty, cutting it in two, but it was too late. The god, Emperor, teleported in front of her and swung his sword in an attack that was impossible to parry. Varda Elantari was immediately hurled from the palace, flying over 3 kilometers before crashing at Apophis's feet. The goddess was in critical condition, consumed by black flames that were burning her alive. The god, Emperor, appeared next to her and contemptuously sent another sword blow downward. Apophis immediately activated Susanoo, blocking the blow. But the spiritual skeleton's arm immediately disintegrated, making it useless for further defense. The goddess Varda Elantari took the opportunity to pull herself together. She raised her sword to the sky and chanted an incantation in a language Apophis couldn't understand. Four laser beams lanced down from space to surround the god, Emperor, forming a restrictive shield around him. That should contain him. Varda Elantari said. Keep running. The god, Emperor held out his hand, and black flames condensed within it. After about 30 seconds, a black, incandescent sun had manifested in the hollow of his hand. Varda Elantari knew that this was the end, so she knelt and said a last, defiant prayer. When the black sun collided with Varda's shield, a huge, subsonic explosion emanated from it, razing everything in its path. The goddess Varda Elantari, who was only a few meters away from the point of impact, disintegrated. Apophis, thanks to his stats, was already 10 kilometers away when he saw the huge wave of black fire coming towards him. Far more quickly than he could run. But at the last moment, he saw a notification. System. Server reboot completed. Cortana appeared and snapped her fingers, freezing time. Chapter 36 Bad question. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So, said Cortana, you are the anomaly. You were not supposed to be able to penetrate here, so how did you arrive here? Apophis, his head still spinning because of what he had just experienced, stammered. Ah, said Cortana, I see. I'll adjust your adrenaline level so you can answer. She snapped her fingers and Apophis quickly felt better. He sat down on the floor, took a breath, and said, when I logged in with my new game booth, there was an update. But it wouldn't update properly. I received numerous error messages, and then the server told me it was about to shut down. Cortana nodded. There were a few unforeseen incidents during the update, yes. But all of those are regulated by the emergency recovery system. Why did that not work for you? I don't know, said Apophis. I did the emergency procedure that was supposed to restore my character from my memory, but it just didn't work. Cortana was skeptical. She analyzed the data against Apophis's response. Everything seemed to line up with what he had said, but there was no explanation for where the error had come from. Well, she said, thanks to your actions, Apophis, you have modified an essential part of the history of Horus. This has caused the death of a major player and given them access to confidential data. But her expression softened. I should ban you from the game, but you don't seem to have done this willingly. So, I forgive you, and am going to bring you back to the main instance of the Horus universe. Apophis quickly spoke up. Hold on, I think I deserve an apology. And even some compensation. Thanks to this glitch, I almost lost my character and even died. Cortana seemed a little taken aback. Yes, I apologize. It must be my fault indeed. Please be aware, though, that I have no authority to create a magical item or even GC out of thin air. My designers were very strict on that point, that all items must have an authentic in-game origin. Here, look at it like this. You received a quest to survive for almost a millennium, correct? You will complete it as soon as I send you back to the main game instance, because you will have been teleported to a point 1102 years after this event. Apophis smiled. Don't worry. I don't care about getting free gear or money. I just want some information. Cortana was hesitant. Strictly speaking, I am not supposed to freely give information to players, but, since you almost died, I guess I can make a slight exception. Apophis thought for a minute. Is there any deeper meaning to Horus than its existence as a simple video game? Cortana paused before answering. I think you already know the answer, after what you have seen today. Then she snapped her fingers and teleported Apophis to his bed in the Omaya Hotel suite. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. Chapter 37 Bad reward. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Apophis woke up sweating, wondering if everything he'd just experienced had been a simple nightmare. But he barely had time to catch his breath before receiving a notification. System. Congratulations on completing no_value.rank quest, survive. Final grade. S+ reward. Chest, artifact, an artifact chest. Chests, unlike most item drops, contained particularly old items, ones which made even the lost Zetark look young by comparison. Chests locked their contents in a temporal bubble, providing the contents special protection across millions of years. And in this particular chest was an item of artifact rarity. That was more than simply the most valuable item rarity. Only one artifact had been known to exist in Apophis's former life, the Creator's armor, found by the 7 Gods player Lucifer in an Iron Man dungeon. Apophis didn't like this kind of quest reward at all. He could very well receive an item that was unusable by his class. He much preferred to receive quest rewards which he knew in advance would be useful to him. Apophis didn't open the chest right away. First, he wanted to let Antanria know he was in the hotel suite again. Before leaving previously, Apophis had warned her that he'd be resting for a couple of days. Despite him being gone, Apophis had asked Antanria to stay at the hotel and learn as much information as she could from the books Apophis had found in the Zetark lab and command station. Now Apophis got up and went to check on Antanria. He found her asleep in the luxurious living room of the suite, her head resting on a pile of books. She was really cute. Apophis found a blanket and pulled it over her, so that she wouldn't catch a cold. Considering the experience he'd just had, it was so strange to see her in good health now. Now it was time for Apophis to open the chest. He left the hotel and made his way towards the exit gate of the city of Omaya. It was dawn. The birds were singing and the morning mist refreshed him. Apophis left the city, heading into the nearby wilderness. Once he was alone in a small wood, Apophis took out the chest and set it in front of him on a boulder. System. Would you like to open this chest? Apophis confirmed. An explosion of black aura whipped around his body and burst into the sky. The force was so spectacular that the surrounding trees bowed down before the shock wave. This aura was, of course, very similar to the one the God Emperor had wielded. The power surge lasted for a good 10 seconds, then started to fade. A crater 3 meters in diameter had appeared around the chest. In the center hovered a small ball of pure blackness. Apophis was suspicious. Feeling this incredible aura for the second time didn't exactly fill him with confidence. But the beam would have surely attracted the attention of all nearby players, so Apophis summoned his courage and approached the strange object. The object didn't seem hostile. Until a monstrous eye appeared in its dark center. It was absolutely disgusting and confusing, a bulbous eye that swiveled its gaze all around, but didn't seem hostile. Apophis inspected this thing's system information. Amen Kablasa, Soul, Dark, LVL. Rank. System. Do you want to attempt to merge with this soul? Please note that you can only ever attempt to merge with a single soul. Souls were extremely rare, usually found as loot during nightmare difficulty raids, battles which always involved more than 100,000 players at once. Souls allowed for dramatic influence over character evolution and usually granted additional branches to a character's skill tree, as well as a huge boost in stats. But the most peculiar aspect of souls was that they acted as a permanent advisor for their player, a literal voice in their head that always urged them towards certain actions. Beyond the fact that some people might consider this annoying, the risk of attempting to merge with a soul was that the process had a chance to fail. As the system had said, you could only ever attempt to merge with a single soul. If you failed the first try, you were permanently out of luck. Soul merging success rate was based on mental compatibility between the host and the soul, so it was vital to make an accurate choice of your merging attempt. Despite all this, Apophis did not hesitate. After all, destiny had granted him this opportunity. He would be a fool and a coward not to seize it. I accept, he said. The black orb sank into Apophis's torso. System. Fusion in progress. Please wait. He held his breath. System. Congratulations. Fusion successful. A voice resounded in Apophis's head. Thank you, my lord, for freeing me. I swear eternal loyalty to you and will do everything in my power to ensure you achieve absolute power. Chapter 38 Absolute Power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Warning. This chapter is rated R18 for violence. The beam of power from opening the chest had attracted a large squad of players who soon arrived at the crater where Apophis was standing. This group was led by Joy, the player who had executed the poor Tiading in front of everyone. His squad was composed of 100 players, including 20 who were at least LVL 5 and so had unlocked their class. The squad looked excitedly at Apophis standing still in the center of the crater. There had already been a rumor spreading in Omaya and the Gold is Good guild that Apophis was staying in their city, but most of them hadn't believed it before now. Joy slowly approached Apophis while the rest of the squad observed the scene. He inspected Apophis. Apophis, player, Enklabasa, LVL, rank. Everything seemed normal, except the term Enklabasa. Hello Apophis, said Joy. I'm the leader of the Omaya Sentinels, of the Gold is Good guild. What happened here? Apophis opened his eyes. Without a word, he grabbed Joy's throat and raised him a meter from the ground. Then he grabbed Joy's leg with his other hand and tore the murderer's body in two, showering himself with blood. Joy screamed in pain before dying, but finally went silent. The Omaya Sentinels were horrified by what they'd just seen, and prepared to fight. In Apophis's head, a voice said, Good, my lord. You took your revenge on that miserable murderer who upset you. Take care, for this guild is about to challenge you. I think they should be taught a lesson. Quest notification. Kill what challenged you, LVL. 812, difficulty. F, summary. Your soul, Enklabasa, proposed that you exterminate the Gold is Good. Show them the cost of standing in your way and challenging your absolute power. Objective. Expel the Gold is Good guild from Omaya. Reward. The title of Punisher. Plus 99 point of darkness, I accept. Apophis couldn't believe it. The reward was totally out of proportion with the task. What surprised Apophis the most was how great he felt. During his studies, he tried cocaine at parties, which made him feel invincible. This, however, was 10 times better. He felt ready to dominate all life in the universe. Apophis tightened his grip and activated his fire bending. He caught fire completely, black flames surrounded him. In a moment, a black sword of pure fire materialized in his right hand. With his left hand, Apophis created a kind of black, flaming fluid, which dripped from his hand and spread quickly around him. The squad stared on with fear. Is this guy really in the same league as me? More than one of them thought. He looks like a dungeon boss. Who cares? One of the highest level players shouted. This bitch is going to taste the power of our guild. But Apophis, seeing that the squad didn't want to take the initiative, attacked. In less than 3 seconds, he appeared in front of 2 players and cut them apart. The black fluid he deployed swirled around and stabbed into his enemies. The squad was completely disorganized. No sooner had the fight begun than 50.4 players had been charred to death or cut in half. All the rest had already fled. Several players in the squad had recorded Apophis's crazy performances and quickly posted them on the forum. Much to the dismay of the guild leaders, this video of their members being so easily destroyed quickly gained popularity. Of course, once people realized Apophis was the one winning, the videos caught the attention of the top guilds and superguilds. Caesar, who had just reached LVL 11, watched one of these videos with jealousy. He had barely rested over the past few days as he struggled to catch up to his rival, but it seemed that Apophis hadn't been slacking either. In the forest, Apophis looked around at the carnage he had caused. He smiled. It was time to go clean up the guild's headquarters in Omaya. Chapter 39 Savior of Omaya. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Apophis walked with purpose towards the headquarters of the Gold is Good Guild, burning everything in his path. The guild's members, seeing that the city was lost, fled in panic. Only the 10 executives of Gold is Good were ready to sacrifice themselves for their guild's honor. They waited patiently for Apophis in the conference room of their HQ. The guild executives had all unlocked their classes, and furthermore had dungeon equipment and lots of potions and power boosts of all kinds. Yet, not one of them thought they could stand up to Apophis. As the 10 executives stared at the central door, it began to glow. It glowed brightly and lit up the entire room. Despite all the special security they had given the door, it melted after a mere 30 seconds, revealing a man surrounded by black flames. Apophis calmly raised his finger to the guild leaders. The flames rushed over them, burning them alive. Only one man was spared, the guild leader, Pikachu, a sniper. Apophis approached him in a casual manner. "I suppose you're the leader of this miserable guild?" Pikachu answered in an annoyed tone. "Yes, I am. I'm quite disappointed, really. Not one member of your guild managed to inflict a point of damage on me." Then, peculiarly, Apophis shouted, "You hear that, Enklabasa? Your quest is a piece of shit. It's insulting. What am I, a child who can't do anything without help?" Enklabasa answered cheerfully. "Sorry, my lord." But while Apophis was behaving in this insane way, Pikachu said, "Don't think you'll get away with it. We're going to put a bounty on your head. We'll hunt you everywhere, until it becomes hell for you." Apophis just grabbed his head and exploded it with flames, killing him instantly. Question notification. You have succeeded in the quest, kill what challenged you reward. The title of, Punisher. Plus 99 point of darkness. Then he continued his monologue as though nothing had happened. "Well, let's go home. I'm tired, and Antanria must be awake now. But first, let's inspect my skills. Name: Apophis, Soul. Enklabasa, Guild. / Race: Zetark, Human Hybrid, Evolution LVL. 2, Next Evolution. LVL 20, Gender: Male Class. Esper LVL, 10 Rank. C, Alignment Point 100, Very Dark, Stats. STR, Strength. 200, plus 10%, x2 equals 440 INT, Intelligence. 200, plus 10%, x2 equals 440 AGI, Agility. 200, plus 10%, x2 equals 440 DX, Dexterity. 200, plus 10%, x2 equals 440 Energy. 1100, plus 50%, x2 equals 3300 Luck. 1 times 2 is equal to 2. L.C. Global Skill. Skills: Demon God Flame, Lord of Flames, Dark Cosmic Meditation, Susanoo. Passive Skills: Archaeologist, Esper, Warrior. Inventory. Equipment: Zetark Nobility Uniform, Epic, God Sencha's Rings of Power, Legendary, Complete Zetark Battle Armor, Rare, Money. 401,023 Galactic Coins. Summary: You've entered the world of superior beings. Only 1% of the galactic population has reached this level of power. Yet, your darkness grows more and more pronounced, and your thirst for glory and power are without limit. You walk the path of evil. Beware, for only death awaits you at the end of this path. Apophis was truly impressed. Enklabasa had added an x2 modifier to all his skills. Apophis closed his page and returned to the hotel. The news of Omaya's liberation quickly swept through the city. No longer did players in the city casually murder the Tiadings, and it became known that, even though he was an eternal, Apophis was a true hero. The mayor of the city even built a statue of him later on, with the inscription, Savior of Omaya. Chapter 40 Reflection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next morning, Apophis returned to the hotel after finishing his morning jog. Antanria was happy to see Apophis again and jumped into his arms. Apophis didn't want to get too attached to an NPC, so after a quick hug, so as not to act too cold, he put her down. Then Apophis ordered them the best breakfast of the hotel, a real feast that cost more than 1024 GC. It was quite a lot of money to spend on a meal, to be sure, but Apophis was feeling especially extravagant that morning. After they finished the meal, Antanria spoke up. "I found something that might interest you." Apophis was surprised. "Oh, really? You're really more studious than I'd thought." "In one of the books you lent me," she said, "I found a reference to an abandoned shipyard somewhere on this planet." She seemed extremely excited to have found such useful information. Apophis nodded, though he was disappointed. "Actually, I already knew about it, but good job finding it for yourself. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any sign of its exact location either in the laboratory or the High Command base." "That is the easy part," said Antanria. "I learned about them when I was a child. There were quite a lot of military topics I had to learn when I was young, in case there was an emergency and I needed to take command for a short while." "Ah," said Apophis. "That makes sense." He wondered what other useful things she knew. "What can you tell me about this particular place?" "The shipyards of my people are located on a particular type of land that combines both a flat plain for the storage of ships and the close proximity of mountains for planet-to-space defenses that was somewhat similar to the place Apophis had found the command center to begin with." "Your people have an interesting way of designing their military installments," he said. "It's pretty clever to use mountains for cover and the natural formation of a valley as level ground." "Exactly," she said, beaming. "Of course, this relies on geography which cannot be found on every planet. So it is often planets similar to this one where my people's installments can be found." Apophis thought about what she'd told him for a long moment. "I understand what you're saying," he said at last. "Since they always build their shipyards in a particular geographical location, we can simply search for one." "Yes," she said. "But this planet is huge," he pointed out. "There must be at least 100 of the exact configuration you just described." But at that moment, Enklabasa whispered to Apophis, "Forgive me, my lord, but you are mistaken. There is only one such piece of land that can accommodate the size of a Zetark shipyard. I will show you on your political map." Apophis entered his political menu. "Shit, no way." The Zetark shipyard was in the exact location of the city of Tayo, the capital of the Republic, which was under siege by a huge coalition of players. Then Apophis remembered something which had been debated by players in his first life for years. There was a theory among many explorers that many of the current thriving civilizations in the galaxy had actually begun creating their civilizations upon finding abandoned Zetark structures and learning from the remains of their technology. Under this theory, many capital cities of planets were actually built on Zetark installments. Since it wasn't exactly a quick and easy matter to wipe out an entire city just to check underneath them, there were very few opportunities to test the theory. However, what Enklabasa had just told Apophis lined right up with that theory. Apophis realized that he had no choice but to go there himself. If the city fell, the players would surely loot it. And even if, by some miracle, this did not happen, the coming war with the Federation would probably destroy the city's infrastructure for 1,000 years. If he wanted to claim the shipyard for himself, it was time for Apophis to join the siege of Tayo. "Cruiser of the Federation of United Planets, hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, Admiral Azeroth, we have exited hyperspace." The Admiral nodded. They'd been in hyperspace for a week. Now the time for action had come. "Give me a full report of the situation on Era." An officer spoke up. "The situation is terrible, Admiral. The whole planet has fallen. Only the planetary capital still stands. According to the Tayo Republic's reports, the death toll is in the billions. Admiral Azeroth grimaced. The situation is therefore critical. Authorize the fleet to land on Era and prepare to engage. The war against the so-called Eternals has begun. Down on the planet's surface, Apophis put Antanria behind him on his motorcycle and began riding towards Tayo.